sometimes as much as we can. I'd like to start out by welcoming everybody that's here as guests with us today. It's nice to see so many community leaders and elected officials both here to not only participate but support the various projects that we're going to see presented today. It's very exciting to see this much interest in the projects that Cliff has put forward to us today. This is the Planning and Development Committee of Forum Court. I'm Michael White, the chairman, and then you see our other JPs here. We have Cliff Chitwood with us as our economic development. We've got Molly Jackson, Rick Ash, Cecil McDonald, and Justice McClanahan, Miss Toby, with us here. At the other head of the table, the other head, our county judge. We'd especially like to welcome our two mayors that we have in Osceola and Wybble, Mayor Wilson and Mayor Sanders. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Cliff Chitwood, and I think one of the first projects he had to talk about is probably the one that's generated the most interest of the crowd that's here today. So with that, Mr. Chitwood.
Thank you, sir. Well, it is a pleasure and an honor to speak to such a group today. The first project that the Great River Board is recommending for adoption concerns Chime Solutions. Chime is an Atlanta-based company. It's owned by a gentleman named Mark Wilson. Myself and members from the college, as well as from the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, have been to Atlanta and visited him and his site. It is most impressive, as is Mr. Wilson. He is one of the 3 or 4 most impressive gentlemen I have ever met in my life. He's an African-American businessman. He grew up in public housing in Fort Smith. He is extremely well educated. For 20 years, he ran the service center for Dun & Bradstreet. So when someone had a question about Dun & Bradstreet services, they would call in to the call center, and he was in charge of making sure that his people were well trained to give the answers. About 20 years ago, Dun & Bradstreet said, we're going to farm all this work out, which essentially meant we're going to send it to India and Pakistan. And he said, if that's going to be the case, then I'm going to resign and start my own company. I would like a contract. They gave him a $25,000 contract. Over the next 10 years, he built that into a multi-million-dollar call service company, primarily operating in major American cities, and then sold it out for several million dollars. Took a few years off. He'd earned it. About 7 years ago, he went back into business with Chime. He has operations in Atlanta, Dallas, and Charleston. It was kind of through an accident of people, a young man who grew up here in Wybble, in hometown Missouri, that interested Mr. Wilson in Wybble, and also in coming back to Arkansas, because what he does is his customer list reads like Fortune 100, not Fortune 500, Fortune 100. It's Apple, Google, Chase Manhattan Bank, Morgan, IBM, the top tier companies. And what he essentially says is each one of you would like to do and are trying to do things for the African American community. So what you're doing is writing a big check to a philanthropy somewhere. You really don't know how that turns out. You don't know if progress is made, if the aid given is positive in its effect or negative in its effect. Let me have a contract, and I will give people jobs, and that will make a difference in their lives. And we all know this to be true. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity. Due to the caliber of the companies that he deals with, the training can be quite intensive. What he would like to bring to Wybble is a service center dedicated to Cigna Insurance, which is one of the largest insurance companies in the world. The training will last 8 weeks. That's 40 hours a week for 8 weeks. I haven't sat in a classroom that long in a long time, and I bet most of y'all haven't either. And to have people sit through that type of training, they will need to be compensated, and this is what's been done for the company. The company's not asking for any incentive money, not for the company. They are asking that we train our people and pay them while they're being trained, so that they can, when they graduate, they can go to work. His investment, Chime's investment, capital investment, outside of commercial real estate, which he will handle on his own, will be $2.3 million. That's $2.3 million worth of furniture, computers, AT&T cost, the entire thing that costs to set up the center. And then he will make a long-term lease contract. And there's several sites he's still looking at in Liable, but that will add another $1 million to $2 million over a 5 to 7 year period. So he will be heavily invested and have skin in the game. What we're asking for is $1,991,531 to train 150 people over this 8-week period, plus a pre-employment training. Because to get hired at Chime, you have to do two things. You have to pass an aptitude test, which has some keyboarding skills, and a lot of people have gotten rusty on those. This pre-employment training will cover that. It will also, it will teach to the test. It will we'll understand what the test is. We'll understand how to train our people to pass it. And then there's drug screening. And that will be done in the pre-employment training phase. Once that's done, then in the beginning, Cigna people will come in and actually begin, or Cigna and or Chime people will begin the actual 8 weeks of training. Over time, Arkansas Northeastern College personnel will take over that obligation. I think this is a great opportunity. I've said in this room several times, this county lost 9,000 jobs in the 90s, and the Air Force Base. That's 18,000 people. That's what happened in Mississippi County. It wasn't that nobody was paying attention. It wasn't bad leadership. It was the global economy and the end of the Cold War. This is an opportunity for us to put many of those same people back to work. People who used to work at Milwaukee Tool, Ward Warner, all of the places, even Fruit of the Loom. I mean, his recruit, he will come to town, Mr. Wilson will come to town, and while he is not a bombastic or a flashy individual, he is compelling. And he will want to speak to the community and explain to them what this opportunity means. And people will turn out in the hundreds. So that's basically the recommendation. We've talked to the state. The state is interested in helping. I'm expecting a figure somewhere between $500,000 and $800,000 from the state of Arkansas. That would come off of the $1.99 million of the county. But we need to do this today because he has to get started. He's under crazy businessman. I mean, this is a wonderful thing. It can have great positive social implications, but at rock bottom, Chime has to make a profit, and it has to satisfy its customers. And his customer is saying, we want you in training in July. So that's why that's the first item of business today.
Who, the training?
The training.
Through the college?
Through the college.
So, ANC will take care of all of that.
Right.
When will these people go on payroll? If they're gonna have pre-employment training and then 8 weeks of training, when does payroll start?
Well, the actual payroll starts after the pre-employment training.
So during the 8 weeks of training, they're actually making some money.
$15, $16.
That's okay, so that's what I was trying to calculate. So I was trying to do the math backwards. So it's 8 weeks of training for 150 people at $15 to $16 an hour. Does that? I don't think that comes up to
Well,
where's the calculation?
Well, I think,
Do you have enough?
Gene, did you?
Yes,
Gene Bennett was Vice President of Training and Workforce Development at ANNEX. If I could call on Gene, to address this?
The 1.991.531 consists of the Cigna training, which is the 320 hours. It also consists of the pre-employment training. And there are two tracks of people, as Cliff mentioned. One track will be those that pass the application test, and they'll go straight to new hire training. The other group, they will go to pre-hire training. So of the 1.9, there is 360,000 for the Cigna training. There is 81,250 for the pre-employment training. There's 82,031 for the new hire training. There is some management and support staff training that we will be providing for the supervisors and managers. That's $9,875 for a total cost of training of $598,156. I can, if you need more detail, I'll be happy to share.
I finally managed to get something in front of me that has some of those numbers so I can process in my brain. So what happens, so this is training for them to go through the pre-employment and then through the 8-week training, right?
Correct.
Is what we're paying for. What happens if that person gets out of training, works a week and quits? So we've just lost all that money?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So it's not a loss, and I'll explain why it's not a loss.
Well,
If we can provide training opportunities for an individual, whether they work for Chime Solutions or they go to work somewhere else, the county is still benefited from that training. This project is for Chime Solutions, but the training, just like when we train for Nucor, they may go to a different company, and the county benefits from that training, regardless if it's this intended project or another.
well, my understanding is that this is a very specified, specific training program, which is why Cigna themselves is coming in to do it themselves in the beginning, right? So I'm trying to figure out how that would translate into another job if we train them how to work for Cigna and how to answer Cigna's questions. Right?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. But we're counting in these figures on losing some people during the employment training and during the aptitude test and during the drug screen.
Right.
Everyone does. But to sit through 8 weeks of training and then quit or not take the job, I mean, it will happen.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think it's gonna be pretty rare. That's 2 solid months. And you're already making what you're going to make. So why would you, and then I guess in the end, this is gonna come down to a test of how much faith we have in our own people as to whether they will take this opportunity.
Well, that's part of my concern is where the people are gonna come from. I already know Tenaris has been trying to fill 300 positions for months and can't fill them. I know every place in town is hiring and can't fill them. So I'm just wondering where the people are they're gonna come from. If anybody done even.
Yes, I mean, we have the unemployment rate among African American females is tremendous in Mississippi County.
I would say that across the board. I'm not throwing out a demographic. I'm just saying in general.
Well, that's primarily where Mr. Wilson will be looking for recruit is African American females. They do not, for the whole, nor Caucasian females prefer to work at Tenaris or the steel mills or any of these other places. But in times past, they filled up American Greetings. There's still 1,600 people, mostly female, working in American Greeting Coffee. There were 3,000 people working in Food and Balloon. There were 500 people at Borg Warner and 700 at Milwaukee Tool at one time.
That's a different generation of folks, but when you get back that far, you're talking about a totally different workforce than what we've got right now.
Let me ask you this question. Besides Cigna, what other companies will he be able to?
Well, his other customers are Apple, Alphabet, Google, J.P. Morgan, Chase, several of the software companies, but this is the contract.
It's for Cigna only. How long length of time?
He has more business than he has chairs that we can fill. I mean, if we had 1,000 people that could go to work, he would hire. And that could happen. it could not happen. I mean, I've never, you know, I can't guarantee a business success, but I think that's how we came to the number of 150. It's a number we feel like we can fulfill, but if we go past 150 and people are still passing the aptitude test and clearing the drug hurdle and staying in class, the state of Arkansas, they will be piling all over this because it will be one of a transformational economic development success.
This is specifically off the 150, so once they hit that 150, they're full capacity employed at 150, then the training program's over as far as we're concerned, and he'll be paying it himself. Is that how that's
right.
gonna work?
That's right.
Mr. Chitwood, is there gonna be like a childcare, daycare program?
Yes, when they get up and going, there will be a, whatever real estate arrangements he makes, wherever he makes them, and he's looking at several different spots, but there will be childcare. Now, the employees, they can subtract it from their pay, but they will have the opportunity to have childcare.
So it's not free childcare.
It's not free childcare. And that's, you know, childcare is an important thing. I mean, over the years, most of the people who would like to work, try to work, and then find out they can't work, it's for one or two reasons: childcare or transportation. You know, your buddy will always give you a ride for 3 or 4 days, but he didn't realize he was signing up to give you a ride the rest of your life. And mom will keep the kids, or your aunt will keep the kids, but they've already kept kids for their 10 or 12 years. They're not really looking forward to doing it again, but he's had no trouble. That's a great business opportunity. You know, you're right there. You hire a few people to run your daycare. You have a captive audience, a captive market.
So his benefits package, will he also do full benefits, medical?
Medical, 401k, retirement, and having viewed the facility in Atlanta, it's not, I don't want to give the impression it's lavish, but it's above normal. I mean, his whole approach, I would say the architecture would be similar to that at ANNEX, with the goal of having people understand, I'm in a special place now. This is where work happens. His workers are very well dressed. Of course, it's air conditioned. They work in front of a table like this long with 2 big screens and a headphone, and that's what that training is for. Because there's just so many things that can go wrong with either an Apple computer or a single insurance policy. And you've studied all those, and as that first question comes up, 3 suggested responses, and then they just follow that through. And it's down to a fine art. I mean, depending on the problem, they even know how many minutes it should take to solve that problem. And if it runs over that, then on the supervisor's desk, a little light starts to move, and he or she can have time into that conversation.
We have questions in the back.
Yes, sir.
I'm Pastor Nate Smith. Listen, my understanding is that we were talking about where the people are going to come from. Is the push going to be made that it's going to be in the paper, that it's going to be to get out to contact these young people, the Facebook page, their social status, all those things will be pinpointed to get those people to those jobs, so they'll be aware of it. As much as it is maybe even teams going by into some of the project areas or apartment areas for these young ladies to make sure they're where those jobs are. They going to do anything like that?
Absolutely. That's what he's done in Charleston and Dallas and Atlanta, and he's done it himself.
Yeah, I just see that as the most beneficial part. I'm not worried so much about where people are coming from. The other programs we have not had the issue where they go and knock on the door. And I think, like you said, these young people don't want to work in the steel mill. I don't want to be in a hot box. That's why I retired.
Right.
So, being that we're looking for that group of people, we got to go get them. And
Right.
then when you say that they're going to get into an atmosphere that they're used to, and we talk about talking on telephone, all the social stuff that they do at home anyway,
Right.
it's just a win-win. It'd be just a win-win.
I hope that's true. I really do. It's not about the word out. I know that there are a lot of people, that there's a lot of jobs out there and people are asking for jobs, but why can't we fill these jobs if we're begging for jobs and people aren't going out and filling out applications, or they're just not. I mean, it's just a different generation of younger people right now, I think, in the way that they look at how to find a job and how to look for a job. But I do have a question back for you.
Let me just
Yes,
answer that.
yes, sir.
The other part of your question that you're talking about, those jobs are not paying $15 plus an hour. Those people are going, you're talking about going to work at these places where they're making $10, $11 an hour, or they're working plus they're getting tips and all those kind of things. And people, these young people are not the type of people that's going to go out there.
Yeah, that's what I have a problem. I mean, on some level, I have a little bit of problem with that particular statement. Because I feel like there is a generation of kids that don't understand how to work their way up. I mean, I started out at $4 an hour at Walmart too when I was a teenager, and I think there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that want to start up here and they don't want to pay their dues and work harder.
I think it's like Mr. Chief would say, this is the time for change now, for something to come, so we can help those people out, to help them get up. It's going to be a great economic development for that group.
Back to your question in the training.
Yes,
So this is specifically calculated for 150 people to make it through 40 hours, whatever. So if we do lose some in the process, there's no funding to get them to that 150. So like if you have some that start training, you have 150 during the program and you lose 30 people out of that 150, then there's no training money left to get that 30 people back in there. Does that make sense?
We've calculated the budget based on the 150 full-time employees and 25 on-call employees.
Okay.
And you're correct. If someone starts and they don't finish, they drop out, they don't go through the new hire training, they don't go through the Cigna training, then yes, what this budget is for those original 150 plus 25 on call. There's nothing that says that if someone drops out of the pre-employment, that opens a space up in another space in the new hire training. So the 150 funnel is not a static number. It could be more people that are affected, but it's 150 we're trying to get through the bottom of the funnel.
Okay. And during this 8-week initial training, the Cigna people are going to train your people at ANC how to continue to perpetrate that training?
Yes, ma'am. We have 2 individuals. If you look on that sheet that you're looking at, that's at no cost. The college is providing those individuals to go through the training, and then we will pick up the trainer, and from then on, the next set of 320-hour trainings, we will be providing that.
So, since you made the statement about them being able to, if they don't continue with this job, and then that could translate into other jobs, is that particular, once ANC gets that training program, is that something that we could offer up to other businesses in town that we aren't able to incentivize to be able to train their people?
The 320 hours of Cigna training is company specific for Cigna. The service call skill set, that could be transferable to any type of service center.
Right.
The skills that I'm talking about that are readily transferable are those pre-employment skills, the computer skills, communication skills, customer service skills, all of those skills. It doesn't matter if they go to work for Chime Solutions, they still have those skills and can go to work in another service industry, in hospitality or in food services or in any other area that could be transferred to. They could go be the receptionist at ANC. That's what I'm saying is the benefit. It's not a one and done or a one and out. You didn't make this, so we're through with you. We're providing life skills for a group of individuals that traditionally have had to cope with raising a child or working. We're trying to provide an opportunity for them to get the skill set so that they can do both. This is Chime Solutions is planning on having daycare. That takes away that burden. And they can go to work at that point.
But they won't have a daycare during the training.
Well, they may. We've never done this before. And in Atlanta, they got through about half the training. It was 7,000 people there or more, and about, I don't know, between a third and 40% of the training. At that point, they had a child care center up and
think from that training, doing them going through daycare doing the program will be a problem because the Mississippi County ELC Head Start program has a direct working relationship with the college. So it's just a matter of a phone call and enrolling those people because they basically will go for that. They'll meet income qualifications.
So what you're thinking is, okay, so I'm just talking out loud now, so you think that those people could potentially go to the top of the list? I know that a lot of times the daycare is full of the EOC, I mean,
If it's some more slots, I think it could be opened up.
well, you know, there's
Okay,
usually
yeah,
a
that's the
long,
problem.
Yeah,
a long
I don't
waiting
think
list.
it will be a long waiting list. I think that can be prioritized and probably would be a special program that they could just do target just for it.
That's interesting.
I really do. Yes, sir. Thank you.
If I may, talking about that, as Mr. Chitwood pointed out, it's not too difficult for someone to find childcare for the short term. It's the long term that we have difficulty with. We have two programs right now that we are working with. Our work program that have over 70% of those that participate have jobs. So the second program is the upskill, reskill Mississippi County. Those individuals, they can take care of their child care and transportation in the short term. Part of the transportation is the college has opportunity buses that we run throughout the community to bring individuals to and from training. So I feel like, from my experience, 20-something years doing this, that child care and transportation in the short term can be taken care of. Chime Solutions is planning on helping out with child care for the long term. I don't think that's going to be an overarching barrier to success for this group.
Let me ask you, and I'm glad you mentioned that. We talked about the other jobs that's starting at under minimum wage, under the $15, $16. We're gonna have to get to the point where we're gonna have to get where we start everybody to be over minimum wage in Mississippi County. Because by doing that, we are putting them back into poverty. We're trying to get people out of poverty. So we just gonna have to bite the bullet. My family's been in business for over 80 years. We don't do minimum wage. Everybody that works with us and for us makes more than minimum wage. We are not a poverty-driven business. We're gonna have to step up. We're gonna have to make people to go to 40 hours a week so that we can become successful. The most successful counties in the United States is Fairfax County, Virginia, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Prince George's County. These are the richest counties in the United States. We have something very unique here. We have billion-dollar corporations. Mississippi County should not be in the bottom 10 of the list. We just should not. And it's past time that we decide we're gonna start to pay people more than the minimum wage, and we need to start this issue going forward. We need to be enriched town, spiritually, financially. We need to have our people geared for financial success so that we business owners do not bear the burden of paying taxes for other people. They can pay for themselves. We've got to start doing that. I'm 100% for Chime Solutions.
Pardon me?
I said, County Judge Nelson, would you like to remark?
Well, one of the fundamental rules to macroeconomics is when something happens to a local economy that is for the betterment of that, and everyone benefits that are a part of that. So, and that law, I'm sure many of y'all heard that when John Kennedy was president, he made this speech over and over again about when the tide comes in, all boats rise. And so I think the tide is coming in Mississippi County.
Mayor James Sanders, sir, directly going to impact your community.
Yes,
Thoughts?
Well, again, and it's all about, again, a return on the investment. And as I can understand what Mr. Chitwood is discussing right now, the actual funds are still going to remain in Mississippi County. These are Mississippi County funds that we're using. The members and the people of Mississippi County are going to tax themselves to make this thing happen. And it's nothing more than what we've already been discussing in the past year, even before the tax repassed. It's the fact that we understood the segment of the population that we need to address. The opportunity has now come. So we need, in my opinion, to invest in that to show a return on investment. There have been other industries that have come to
Mississippi County, and that a tax, this Mississippi County tax money has been used for. That has been. But there have also been success stories in that. This can be one of those success stories, but we need to take the opportunity and invest in our people who've actually invested in this county.
You know, this will also impact outlying communities, especially maybe Osceola. The Osceola mayor, Ms. Wilson, would you care to remark?
I just agree with everything Mayor Sanders said. This is something that you'll pass on to the county board to take a look at.
JP's.
Okay, so we obviously see a lot of support here today, and certainly any positive change is something that I'm all in favor of. How did your credit board, how did they come?
Unanimous.
So you met with all of them?
Yes, the executive board.
So you haven't met with the entire board?
Well, our bylaws changed over a year ago. And the entire board, which is somewhat unreal, voted to grant the executive committee the authority to make the recommendations.
So the executive committee is made up of how many people?
7.
Plus yourself.
I don't vote.
We have Brad Harrison here, aren't you on the executive board?
So
Aren't you
y'all-
chairman?
So when
Yes.
is the last time you had a board meeting?
The last full board meeting, we have them quarterly and executive meetings every month. But the way that these projects go through, there's got to be a lot of flexibility to be able to move through these projects. And that's why, one of the main reasons we went to an executive portion of our board, and we were having trouble getting a quorum, when we were working through in 2021, we had problems getting a quorum to even have board meetings. We had to call people and let people call in to have board meetings. That's why we transitioned to more of an executive group, so we could be flexible in the board. But we had, I think our last original board, full board meeting was in March or February, first quarter.
Okay, I do have a comment. So I agree. If this works, I think it's fantastic. I'm not anti this. I mean, but here's the thing. I am an elected official, and this is taxpayer money, and I'm never gonna wanna make a decision without asking a few questions. And I do not like being forced to make a $2 million decision in 30 minutes, and I haven't had any of these numbers in front of me until I walked in the room today. So with that said, I had asked to be on the list to be able to be involved with Greta or to come to some meetings so that when these things are being discussed, I could kind of know what's going on so I'm not completely blindsided with a whole bunch of people staring at me thinking that I'm not for it because I'm asking questions, which that's not the case. So the last email that I got inviting me to a board meeting was September of 2021. So can I get back on that list so I kind of know what's going on?
I apologize. I mean, over the years, I guess from the very beginning, there was some hesitancy on the part of elected officials to want to attend the grant meetings. There was some feeling, which I never thought was really valid, that they would be somehow having 2 feet in 2 different pans of water. But no, we'll invite the entire board to every meeting.
Well, it would just be helpful to be abreast of what's going on, so we're not just blindsided with no information. Didn't have these numbers until, it's just a lot of information, and I want to be a good steward, and I want to make good decisions, and sometimes I can't always do that in 30 minutes.
I understand. We'll invite the entire, y'all tell them, we'll invite P&D, we'll invite the entire board.
Our counselor would
I
like
got
to speak.
one more question. I'm actually going to build off Justice McDonald's point. Big selling point that it's jobs over minimum wage, but I know Little Rock just raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour like a month ago.
Right.
So is there like a commitment to pay over minimum wage or to pay that 15, 16 number?
Well, that's the starting point. Who knows what's going to happen in the American labor market? I mean, the justices are absolutely correct. We are the largest generation in American history is headed to the House, and that's the baby boomers. Can they be replaced? Well, not really, not in cold numbers, because the next largest are the millennials, which are our children, and there aren't as many of them as there are of us. So, there'll be surges of automation. There will be increased pressure to regularize the southern border, so that we can tap into that labor market. But the United States is one of the lucky countries. The population of China is going to be half of where it is now within the next 50 years. Half. I mean, 750 million Chinese people are going to disappear because they were never born. I mean, the whole world is facing a demographic collapse, except the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So we're in a fortunate long-term position. I expect wage competition will continue. And I do believe this. If I were trying to raise prices to my customers, I would rather my customers be Apple, Google, Alphabet, and the House of Morgan than John and Susie Smith over the price of a gallon of gasoline.
Justice Ash?
I just have one question. We've heard for 500,000 the money's going. Where's the rest of it? Because he basically said 500,000 for training.
No, he said the 1.9 million, it's all for training.
All for training.
Right?
No, but you said we could deduct.
That's not what I said. 1.9 million, the 500 and, go to the right page. $598,156 is specifically for training. The balance is for training wages.
Right,
So
that's
the-
what I was saying.
That's what I wanted to know.
That's the differentiation. I
So
think that's
that
what
8 weeks that they're getting paid
Right.
will be coming out of this 1.9 also.
Yes, that's what he said.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I meant by trying the full amount in
I
training.
mean, that, you're reading it. I didn't see that.
That's right.
That
Sorry.
is correct.
Here.
I know.
In relation to what Justice McClanahan was talking about and not coming in blindsided or not knowing or having information. So in our legislative process, this committee process is exactly for what you're talking about and gathering information and learning these numbers. This is where we actually get the numbers and find the numbers. And the vote that we're asking you to take today isn't to give the money to them, it's to move it to the full court next week. So we've got these numbers in front of us now, and we have these next few days to consider what we've heard today in the committee meetings, and then we'll be presenting it to the full court in our regular quorum court meeting for an actual vote of, do we really want to spend the money or not, once we've got this information in front of us.
So, how much, I know Peggy gave us an account balance the other day, how much does that, how much currently do we have committed?
Get it off the top of your head, you can kind of close.
It's 11 million the fund balance? 11 million the fund balance?
That's just the fund balance. How much
Right,
do we have
that's what
committed?
it's committed.
It's not technically, my calculation is we have almost $9 million off the at this point.
I knew it was over 7, I'm just not sure what's current.
7.8 in the CD fund.
Correct.
That's all in the training, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we moved it out of the CD when we,
And there's 3.4 in the regular fund, so I don't know how much of that is.
And that's our operational. Move this forward to the full court that we appropriate $1,991,000.
Sorry, I know there's discussion, I'm sorry. But if there's any, well, this program, I know that it may not necessarily qualify, but is this gonna qualify for the work here, live here? Will this company be able to participate?
These people are already with you. This is the flip side. This is live here working.
Well, but would they be able to
If they wanted to buy a new home.
buy a new home or build a house?
Or by use on one of those.
Depending upon the will of this court, we could make some dollars available for management if management moves in. You know, there will be management. There'll be people in this operation making $100,000.
So have you talked to him about, a community component? Have you talked with him about it?
Sure. I mean, he's all about community. I mean, I wish he could be here, but, he's got 3,000 people working for him now. And what we're doing is, he hasn't asked us for anything more than what Atlanta, Dallas is offering. And I think we're fortunate in being a small community that the company is willing to take a chance with. Because, he no more than we can be absolutely 100% sure that the numbers will be there. But if we start looking down that road, then we never recruit.
So how does this fit into the manufacturing business?
That was the question I had.
Well, the state requires that it.
There was another question I had.
Oh. Page 2. Let's see. Office sector businesses, and this is a print right off the eligible businesses defined by AEDC rules and regulations. With manufacturing is first, distribution centers, office sector business. Office sector means business operations that support primary business needs, including without limitation, customer service, which is where we are, credit accounting, telemarketing. They will not be telemarketing, but they will be answering the telephone, claims processing, and other administrative functions. All businesses in this group should be non-retail and derive at least 75% of their sales revenue from out of state under those qualifications.
About legal counsel.
Sir?
Legal counsel under office space businesses? Like my law firm?
Well, I don't know. I didn't come prepared for that argument.
Well, what we probably get most law offices would be 75% of the business.
I know,
That's
I
kind
know,
of
close
state.
on our-
Out of state.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I was gonna go back to the minimum wage, and I just wonder, one thing that I do think that the entire state of Arkansas has been so proactive in doing is to increase the minimum wage over the national minimum wage. If you go to Tennessee, their minimum wage is still, what, $7.25? I mean, you think about that, people can't live on $7.25, so while I understand what you're saying, while we've gotta be above the $11, the state as a whole has really been proactive in thinking, how can we make sure that our people will stay in Arkansas and work?
And live, make a living.
And live, so think about it like that. I don't understand how people from Tennessee aren't flocking to
Because they're 240 gold with.
Actually, they are.
I think,
Yeah, they're conforming.
I just like to point out one thing, we got a resolution that says we adopt these as the way we use to incentivize businesses.
So we made our own resolution.
Yes, we made our own resolution.
Gentlemen
motion
and
on the floor.
ladies, we have a motion on the floor that we appropriate or move to the full court for its consideration Tuesday night, an appropriation ordinance to Chime Solutions for $1,991,531 for the purpose of training related to Chime Solutions business for 150 jobs. Do I have a second?
Your only option, so yes.
Thank you very much. Is there any other discussion, guys? I mean, I think we have to open this door. And if we don't open the door, we fail the people. I mean, I really believe
Hope it
that.
works.
So,
And every dollar will be invested through ANNEX.
And the $500,000 from the state goes back to us, right? And if they kick in, or we're just
We
reduce
just
our
spend that
commitment by.
back.
well, so can we do, but you're hopeful with the state, right?
Well,
he has to have the 1-9 commitment today in order to get training going, regardless of what the
And
state
we can
does.
reimburse it later.
So the state hasn't committed yet. When do you expect to hear from them?
well, I think by the end of, first week of July. We've talked to Ms. Childers.
That's next week.
And we talked to the training, and the workforce enabling that, which has been a big, program for Governor Hutchinson, which is to train people, pay people for their training, and they were very excited. They have to, Secretary Preston has to approve, I talked to them,
and we have an enhancement plan that has something to do. And just like that, we did River Steel until they got commitment from us, they wouldn't commit.
Right.
So that's gonna be a situation of probably waiting to see what we're.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? We will move this to the full court for its consideration Tuesday night.
You know,
Kovar is here with us for, he's the one that brought this to us at the very beginning, Cliff and I. It's a great program, and it's certainly going to be beneficial to the entire
I say the word, so. To our gallery participants, we've got 2 or 3 other orders of business. You're very, very welcome to stay. We're going to be talking about other economic development opportunities, and love for you to stay. But if any of you would care to leave, then please feel free to. You're not captive audience. But we're going to move on with our business, if that's all right.
and
Tuesday night is in Osceola. If you care to come, Tuesday night at 6 p.m. at the Osceola Courthouse.
Mr. Bennett, can I get a number for you? I got a question that's unrelated. I'm gonna call you and ask you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
promise I'm not gonna.
They're gonna do what they do.
I'm not gonna shoot a hot I'm loving you. Thank you. I love her. She's working. You just sound like if you
Actually, in that organization,
we are also their only customer that they can make happen.
Hey, do we need to like say something about
No, that's just generally.
okay, going forward, with everyone's indulgence, we'll move back into business meeting again, please. We appreciate everybody that came, and glad to have the support and input, but we have other business that we need to move into. The Sierra Group is looking for maybe some help. Mr. Chipwood, would you care to present that project, please?
Yes, the last month, before we voted to do the tax back in this area, they're expanding 30 jobs. And they have secured their financing with a $500,000 loan from Southern Bank. And they have asked for our help in dealing with that loan. This is something we've done with other local businesses, Arkansas Mechanical, and 3 or 4 more that service either Nucor or Big River Steel. They will actually be a Nucor and Big River Steel customer if they buy rolls of steel and turn them into roof ridges and gutters and other metal products. So my board, my executive board, has recommended a $250,000 offset payment on their $500,000 loan based on 30 jobs being created. And we would not make that until the 30 jobs have been created.
And this would be for a payment on the loan, so whether it would be completely unsecured, or it's not gonna be specifically for any equipment, or we're gonna have a lien on equipment, or?
We'll have a second lien on the piece of equipment.
Okay, that's the manufacturer, the thing that's gonna float the metal, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I have toured his facility, and it's actually very impressive what he's talking about doing, and one thing I specifically like about it is he's talking about really full circle, because he's talking about buying raw material in Mississippi County and hiring people in Mississippi County and selling it outside of the county. So the money's coming from out, and it's all just continuously regenerated. So I'm really impressed by his plan.
So would you make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve that.
Justice McDonald, you got thoughts?
They recently came, right? This year.
Well, he's been in business
Been here for a long time.
10 years, 5 years.
Marcos.
I've been here
For longer.
Well, he's originally from here.
He's from here.
No, he's from
No,
South
he's been
Padre,
here.
Texas, but he's
South
been here about,
Padre. That's what-
about 2009.
He's been here since he was a teenager.
21 here, but his whole family moved here when he was 21.
He just looks
I
around.
know.
I
Yeah, braces for a little bit.
Yeah, I knew he was, he's been in business for a long time. I had to do it.
So we have a motion
His
from
facility's
Justice
very nice.
McClanahan.
He's taken an old building, that's another thing, he's taken an old existing building and retrofitted it. He's not building a brand new building. He's taken up one of the empty buildings that was just sitting around town. So that's another one of the things I like about his plan.
We have a motion from Justice McClanahan and second. Any further discussion, Justice Act?
We haven't got anything.
They'll be paid in 18 to 24.
And this is after he creates the jobs, so.
Money's given
He's
out.
also good about helping with housing for his employees too. That's what we're having.
Yeah, and he fixes
He
it
does.
up.
Yeah, and he does. He does look nice. And you see his signs all over the place. He is a go-getter.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, we'll add that to the list. $250,000 as a loan payment upon the creation of 30 jobs. Wheatland Tube / Atlas?
Yes, Wheatland is a subsidiary of Atlas, which is a subsidiary of Executive Industries, which I think you're familiar with. They have, when the new expansion is fully staffed, we'll have a little over 200 people working. Mr. Zuckerman has been a good supporter of Mississippi County, and this is a rising steel center. In our last conversation, which is at the grand opening, I talked to him about work here, live here, and he volunteered. He said, when y'all get it all worked out, call me. I will help you. I know everybody in the steel business, and I'll help you get them to do more as far as supporting Mississippi County. What that more is, but nevertheless, for a businessman of his stature to actually be aware of where we are, it is a very good thing. So Wheatland is it's not as big an investment as the 2 previous Atlas investments. $50 million, 60 jobs, $25 to $32 an hour, which is not quite at the pay rate of Atlas. So we're recommending a $500 capital offset payment, $250 of which we will ask him to contribute to grow Mississippi County.
500,000.
250 of the 500,000 we will ask to contribute to to the Grove Mississippi County Foundation, which has been working with me.
I thought we couldn't ask them to do that, we could just thank them when they did.
We can ask,
Okay.
we just can't have a contract.
Okay.
Questions?
I don't do well with figures that are just spouted out to me, so tell me those figures again, Kurt.
The total investment is his total investment is 500 million.
Okay.
I mean, 50 million. Zeros are starting with P. 50 million investment, 60 jobs, $25 to $32 an hour. Our recommendation, the board's recommendation, is that we do a $500K capital offset payment with a request of $250 be contributed to Grove Mississippi County.
Okay.
And that would be both for Wheatland employees and ANNEX employees.
I'm assuming that that request would not be a written request, because that would make it binding, that would be.
That's my thought. That's why
Will
we're
absolutely not be a contract.
So we're conversation.
Well, that's what we have to do, we just have to ask, and if they understand, I mean, they understand the nature of the difficulty, and they also understand that to essentially take our funding and not come through on our ask would mean from this forth until the end of time, we would look at them with a quite jaundiced eye.
Gotcha. So, in essence, they could not make that $250 payment, but they know that they probably shouldn't call us again.
And they like it.
Is this is 60 new jobs? Is this some kind of expansion at the facility they have it here now?
Well, no, it will actually, it will be on, he bought about 300 acres out there. And this will be on that property, but he's looking at 5 other states.
Wait, no, she's asking.
But
It's
this
a new
is
facility.
on the existing Atlas property now, or like right there adjacent to it?
Right next to it, it would be right in that same vicinity, but it's a brand new.
But they're working with like Atlas, they're not they're a part of the same company, right?
Exactly what it is.
Are they making the same product, or are they
Different
making something
product.
different? So I'm still kind of still tubing of some sort.
Right.
And so the $250,000, if they make the $250,000 payment to invest in Grove, Mississippi County, then they in turn would be earmarked for their employees, correct, to turn around and to live and work.
There's that.
Okay, so it would work over, and they are the ones that will make the decision as to which employees and which jobs. Okay.
So are you incentivizing the jobs, or you just, or capital?
It sounds more like a capital investment to me.
I mean, what the law, all of our investments have always been on capital law setting investments. We've always, no matter what we thought we were doing, what we were actually doing was paying for land, machinery, infrastructure.
Right,
We're
but
just
we
basing it on jobs.
Right, basing it on jobs. And the jobs will be there. And Atlas, obviously at these rates, they hire 100% within the rival trade area. Now, you know, they're also far north, they have a considerable number of Boot Hill people, but they have about half from Mississippi County and about half from the Boot Hill, and that's about as good as we're gonna get.
Well, and that's, I mean, a good enough incentive could get some of those people to cross the
To
state
move.
line. to
That's
move.
right.
Well, the
Out
most
of Big
you're
Hill.
moving.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
and if you do the math, I mean, it's really,
Yeah,
if I
it's
did my
really
math
good,
correctly, it's really less than what we.
Right.
Have been doing for some others.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And is this, do we have a timeline, is this when this is gonna?
They're in a hurry. I mean, the state has already sent the state will send our offer in before we have a chance to vote on it. Well, we only found out about it yesterday, so we've not been ready yet.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to accept Graves' recommendation as written. I'm just saying all that.
$500,000 capital offset with the hope and recommendation that half of that be spent in work here. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anybody? With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So-
one more.
He mentioned, or I mentioned, work here, live here the other day, and that we maybe we're having some participation. This wasn't it.
Oh,
Right.
cool.
We've been in, conversations for several months with, US Steel, the Wheatland Tube, and they have come to a good understanding of what we're looking at. They have sent us a development contract, to offset land, purchases, in the amount of $1 million. The point of all those conversations led them to believe that should be appropriately contributed to the Work Here Live Here Foundation for use by either Big River Steel or US Steel.
The entire million? I knew they'd be the first to tell me.
Judge, any thoughts on that, sir?
A lot of great changes are occurring in Mississippi County. We're on the move.
You know, you and I talked the other day, and you said it just seems like when things start moving in our favor, things are going well, it just multiplies.
It's
And I
certainly
just,
multiplying here.
I feel like we're just in that stage here in Mississippi County. So y'all ready to kind of commit $1 million to Work Here Live Here?
No, we're not committing to me, we'll let her work here.
Well-
We're on camera.
Okay, but you're exactly right. So your recommendation, exactly,
Yes.
verbalize it.
To have a new economic development contract with Big River and US Steel for $1 million in capital offset in exchange for the creation of 100 new jobs.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second, appropriating $1 million to capital offsets. So, any other discussion, guys? All in favor?
Sorry.
Again, this is going before the full
Again,
board.
trying to do the math in my head.
How else are we gonna get for $1 million?
Yeah, you're asking me to do a lot.
Cliff, you've got a
I know,
couple
right? I don't
other
know, I
reports.
don't have numbers to read.
Cliff has a couple other reports for us, guys.
I'd like to introduce Ms. Mallory Darby. Mallory is the new vice president and director of
Nice to be
economic
here.
development foundation.
I grew up here, graduated from Dawson High School in 2004. Moved to Mississippi State, got my bachelor's, started in economic development down in Mississippi, and I have been living in Manila for 5 years and working in West Memphis, and so I'm glad to be living and working
And Mallory has had a really a trial by fire first week with 2 site visits. The second one coming up later this afternoon, the project to turn in and this meeting. Yesterday, we did have a site visit by a German company, Tachyon. We showed them the Snyder building. They make batteries, and it's part of the whole electric thing. They're looking for existing buildings that are on a tight timeline. That building is a little beat up, a little used, a little worn for what they would like. I'm sure they would prefer if it looked like somebody, the last tenants had been Apple, making iPhones in there, but that wasn't what happened in there last. So, they've asked, we're getting figures on some, tearing out the old office suites, putting in new office suites, taking out the old sidewalls, new insulation, and then we're in the process of discovering whether the present wet fire suppression system is adequate for batteries or if a dry one will have to be put in. When we have all those figures, I'll bring them to the committee and we'll bring them back to you. But of course, we invested in that building a long time ago, and they eventually, what's enticing about this is that in year 3 and by the end of year 5, they expect to be over 400 workers. So it's kind of, I hadn't seen a project like this since Denson, where they invested $40 million and hired 500 people. But those 500 people are still there. So apparently there are some jobs that even today cannot be automated. So we'll keep surprised.
Snyder Building is a county-owned building, right? That's where the.
It's a county-owned burden.
Yeah, that's
So,
what
they make batteries, car batteries,
No, it's part of the new electric, I mean, the charging stations is really
charging
what they
stations.
are.
Okay.
Okay, so that's coming in plan.
Interesting.
Right.
Well, that was the other connection.
This afternoon, we have a visit from a Korean company, SK. They're a chemical manufacturer. We don't know much more about it. They're looking at our assessed site, our qualified site in Osceola, near Big River Steel. We'll be meeting there about 4 o'clock, and we'll learn more. But they do have a huge electric requirement, and their job teachers are about 150. At the same time, Frigitech, who is an old friend of ours and who we helped expand from 4 jobs to 10 a few years ago, is now looking at adding another 30 jobs and bringing a significant portion of their manufacturing from Germany to Wheatland. And they're also interested in Snyder. So they're looking at how they will need. It's not 400 jobs, but I will say that the people at Frigitech have been real salesmen to Mississippi County and Wheatland. When Frigitech hired him, they said, okay, we're hiring you to be our U.S. guy, move to Houston. He said, no, we can do that right here. We can do it in Wheatland. And they bought a little building, and then a few years ago, we voted $100,000, and they added to them, for them. And now they're going to bring more manufacturing.
So that's a local person?
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee.
Yeah. Atlanta as well.
DNL for years.
Okay.
Tennessee.
Yeah. And they make everything. I mean, they make little refrigerators the size of that cup that go in 20-ton cranes. And they make ones the size of that cabinet that go in 60-ton cranes. And they make, they have a whole ag line where they use cool air to dry the grain rather than hot air, which most American systems use. So, and that concludes my report. And I would certainly send out.
And one more request, and I'm going to say this since Mallory's in earshot, because she's a woman and probably going to do a little bit better with the details to remember this. It would be helpful to me if I had a copy of what you were reading so that I had the numbers and I could process that a little bit better at these committee meetings, if you don't mind.
Guys, we've had a really, really fruitful day. I feel like I think we've had a very productive meeting today. That honestly concludes most of our economic development business. Judge, do you have anything for the committee, sir?
Next week, Mr. Henry and I are going to accompany representatives from Senator Bozeman's office, and as well as representatives from Senator Cotton's office.
Right.
We're going to do what now?
We're gonna be hosting them. They have both have requested to be here next week. And
We'll take them out there and show
We'll
them.
see what's going on in Mississippi County.
that's exactly what they want
That
to
big
see.
hot mess we got out there with open building.
They want to see how we're being so successful.
And not in just one specific area. We're going from the north end to the south end.
Great.
Super.
And it was flattering to get the request from them, and then what they want to see and hear. So they want to be in the know about what's going on.
Do you think that's coming from some of the stuff that the Mullinex firm is buzz that they're creating?
The request came through Washington D.C. They had their staffers contacted the state people, and then actually I believe Mr. Henry didn't. Their staff, at least the cotton staffers, I believe, contacted our consultants in D.C. and then.
Correct. They know that we are represented.
Timber Creek is what I meant. I get those backwards.
So they know, if they want to communicate with Mississippi County, you go to Timber Creek. So we're,
Yeah, so that's good.
we've carved out a niche.
So we'll be very busy.
Full quorum court meetings next Tuesday night at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. I gotta remind myself, I'm not reminding y'all. 6 p.m. in Osceola. We look forward to seeing everybody there. Justice as before we adjourn.
Just an announcement, we're trying to do a police and fire committee meeting. We're trying to do it on Thursday afternoon, 1:30 p.m. Got anything we need to look at meeting to possibly next week.
With that said, I appreciate everybody's attention and support. We call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.